Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Now recently I have gone into making Harry Potter style wands. Here is an example of what I've been trying. Now I've been using really nice woods and sort of metal finials and things like that. And I think I've come up with a style of wand that is pretty unique to me as a maker. We've got that one. This was one of my first ones that I did. And I'm really happy with how this is going, so much so that I would like to bring you guys along, and we're going to be building a very specific wand today. It's not a character wand, it's my own design, but it's for someone in particular that I have in mind. For that, I'm going to be using this lovely, lovely hunk of ebony. You know, ebony is an exotic wood, it's very dense, it's very dark, and this should be lovely to work on. I'm going to be quartering this, so we just should get at least 4 wands out of this big hunk, which is great. Now I use my journal to come up with designs for wands, and I've come up with the design I want to make. As you can see, I just draw in ideas that I have, but the idea for this wand is going to be pretty basic and something like this. Now this is the handle. I want to go with sort of like an Art Deco feel, and we're also going to be doing some inlay like this into the handle. Now it's occurred to me that it could be quite fun to use different materials, and materials as well as exotic woods. We could use things to simulate other materials. So I've been buying things like this, which is faux ivory. It's sort of like a dense plastic that's really good for machining. You can buy a lot of these for turning pens and lathe work, but you get these lovely little pieces which are perfect for wand making. But what I want to do for this one is a mother of pearl handle. So what I did was bought this. Now these are 2 different types of a product called Kiranite. I believe it's just a cast plastic. Again, incredibly suited for turning and making pens, and I've got this one. I think I'm going to be using this one, but it's got a really lovely mother of pearl look, and it's just going to be perfect for the handle that I want to make. I also had lots of things like this made. These are little brass spacers. I wanted them to be quite thick, just in case I want to etch onto these. I had ones made in brass and aluminium. They're the same thing. And if we're going to make the handle out of 2 different things, these are great to just join those together. So that is my plan: ebony, a brass spacer, and a mother of pearl looking handle. So that's my plan. Let's go to the table saw and kick this off. Let's go. So that's my big chunk cut into 4 lovely little pieces like this. Now I'm just going to face them on the sander to get rid of all this wax and just make them nice and smooth so I can handle it without being cut or getting splinters, you know, all that kind of stuff. So here we are, that's everything cut into wand chunks. These have all been cleaned up, so they're lovely to handle, and I can just sort of plan what I'm going to be doing. So save those for later. So with the ebony we have spacer. As you can see, there's still a whole ton of removal we've got to do on this, but it's a nice blank to be using. We've got that, and then this guy. This guy is a bit long. That's at about 20 inches, which is obviously way too big. Probably going to be getting this down to around 16 overall. Now, how do I put this together, you might ask? Well, what I use is 6mm threaded rod. Now, this fits my little guys perfectly because this center's drilled out 6mm. So what I do is I drill into the wood, you know, a certain distance, and into this a certain distance, and then we've got this rod supporting everything together so it's not going to break. That all gets glued up, and then we can start shaping the wand. So here we go. Here is my blank all ready to start sanding. I've got the brass piece all glued up. There's that threaded rod that runs probably about this much, but that should be enough to keep this nice and strong in here. This is just all glued together with super glue, which should be enough. If we get it too hot, it might snap, but then again, we can always just re-glue it, that's fine. This lovely Kyanite section up here, and then the long section of ebony. Probably gonna have to cut. That's probably what I'm going for, so I'm probably just gonna use a saw and take the end off of here, and then this will just be sanded later. So the belt sander is my weapon of choice for this. What I'm going to do is shape my blank like this. I've got a 60 grit belt on here, which I found is really good for removing the harder woods like ebony. So that's going to be my main material. I've not sanded this kind of stuff before, so I've got to see how the Kyanite reacts to the sander. Otherwise, we're just going to shape it out on the sander. You could use hand tools or a Dremel like this with a sanding drum, but that's just going to take a really long time. And it's just going to speed things up a hell of a lot. So there we go, there's all the ebony shaped to roughly how I want it. We can finish it up with hand sanding. Now I'm just going to address this section here. I've switched the belt sander out to a used 100 grit because that should be a lot less abrasive on this plastic. And yeah, I'm going to have a go at creating these facets on here. We're going to go from a round section up here into the plastic. Phew, right, let's have a tidy up here and I will show you guys where I'm at. Okay, so here is the wand so far. It's going pretty well. So I've sanded most of this up to 400 grit. This bit's all nice and done. I did have a little problem. I had a hole up here where I'd done my rod in here a bit wrong. What I did was mix some of the ebony dust from the sanding of this with some super glue, and it managed to really, I think that could be it there. But as you can see, the repair job is pretty damn good. I'm pretty happy. I need to keep sanding on this brass bit, but otherwise that's pretty good. I have to say, I am really happy with how it works. It sanded really well. I did start off with 8 facets on here, on the handle, but I found it was getting a bit muddled. It didn't look great, so I went back, refined it, got this a little bit slimmer, which is more to what I had in mind, and I've reduced it to 6. So if you look at the cross section is a hexagon, and these all just taper to a point, but I'm much more happy with the size of these facets and how that's all transitioning. Now I just need to start working on doing some inlay. So the handle's going to have some little pieces inlaid into it. The person I'm doing this for has Jamaican heritage, so we're going to be incorporating some design features from the Jamaican flag into this, but in a not so obvious way, and a way that I think is going to look actually quite cool. So what I've done is I've got some black stone pieces which I bought off a seller on eBay. It's great, they were really cheap, but they're just little pieces, and I'm going to use those. And these, now this is malachite. Again, this is like a lovely green stone, and I got this in these little discs in varying sizes. And what I'm going to do is, because the Jamaican flag has some black and green triangles on it, what I'm going to do is sand some of these into little triangles and then inlay them into the handle, probably up near the top here. I'm hoping those little discs file nice and easily, and then I've got to set about cutting out the section on here for it to be inlaid, and then we can sand it all smooth. This is my first time doing any kind of work with this material, that material, and my first time inlaying anything, so anything can happen, but it should be fun, and I'm going to see if I can file those bits of stone into the shapes that I want. So after much work here on my 2 pieces, which I'm going to inlay, this was a lot of work. Stone is non-trivial to cut and sand. In the future, I think I would use plastic, but that's got a really nice pattern to it. So now we've just got to inlay them into the handle, and for that I'm just going to be using my Dremel tool and carefully cutting into the surface to lay these in. So I've got this to a point where I'm happy with the finish. I've got the inlay on there, which looks great. Now for my final finishing, I use this. This is Renaissance Wax. It is a protective wax that you can use on just about anything, wood, leather, metal, anything like that. I'm going to apply this with some very fine steel wool, then we'll just let that dry before we get to polishing. Now I'm just going to sit and let that harden for about 20 minutes or so. The wax has solvents in it which need to flash off. After that we can get to polishing. Now to show you guys that you can do this at home without many difficult tools, I'm going to be using just a standard drill. Now I've got a polishing mop on here and we're just going to be using I'm going to use my green Jeweler's Rouge on this, and we're just going to use this. We're going to run the drill and we can buff the wand to a lovely shiny finish. So there we go, that is the one all done. As you can see, it has a lovely box which I've also made. It's got a lovely little foam insert covered in velvet. Oh, but I'm just so happy with how this turned out, and I think the person's going to love it. We've got the lovely inlay down in the handle, the brass accent, and then the ebony one. It looks great, all polished up. As you also saw, I have a little card filled out with all the information on the wand, as well as the care instructions, which I think is a fantastic little addition to go in there. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed following along on how I built this lovely wand to give as a present. Now, I have been making other wands, such as this one and this one, and these will be available on my Etsy page. Do go and check that out. I'll leave a link in the description below, but these will also come with the wooden box that's looking all nice, and you know, the certificate and everything. And again, these are made of exotic woods and metals, so they are really nice to hold. So yeah, if you do want to own one, do go and check that out. It's a great way to support me and the channel, and I think I've got them up there pretty reasonably as well. So go and check that out over on Etsy if you want one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and of course I will see you in the next video, and until then, take care. Bye bye.